Really is about time people start to wake up to who this woman truly is and what her motives really are, considering she's retweeting a march that's being conducted currently in Glasgow regarding independence for Scotland. Because independence, the movement of independence, they seem to have it in their heads that an independence referendum with leaving the UK in favour of remaining in the European Union is an inevitability at this point, because of Sturgeon taking it upon herself last week to start talking about independence again, jumping the gun completely because we've got no mandate until the UK left the European Union, but she likes to pretend otherwise. She likes to pretend it's an inevitability, and as long as there's enough support for it, it will happen. But what's strange to me is while these people are out marching and she's retweeting it, this is her mess at the end of the day. It was only a few days prior where she was at a speech at the Economic Forum, the First Minister's speech, and she says here, "We believe, and the evidence bears this out, that any form of Brexit would be damaging to the Scottish and indeed the UK economy. We've argued that if Brexit must happen, which we would rather it didn't, then the UK as a whole should stay in the single market and customs union. And of course, we propose that any final Brexit deal should be subject to a second referendum." Now, if that referendum came and the referendum swung in favour of the UK remaining in the European Union, she'd have no fucking mandate. But yet she conveniently leaves that part out while she drums up independent support, hence the march currently in Glasgow just now. And as well as her doing this in her divisive ways, that seems to be all she's about good for at this point, she's yet again ignoring Scottish people when they talk about immigration, because she's got this fantasy of having open borders or the next best thing, even though immigration is a concern for people in Scotland, as the polls that she loves to refer to try and pretend that the independence movement is surging. The polls a few days prior came out and said that the Scottish people wanted a reduction in immigration, or were concerned about it at the very least. More Scots think immigration levels are too high, but the SNP says Scotland is welcome to all because Sturgeon says so. I should really applaud your defiance. Really I should. Or should I? Because at the end of the day, as things currently stand, she's got control over immigration in terms of encouraging free movement of people from European countries. So if she's not been able to get as many people over here as would be needed in order to rectify the aging population that they conveniently sat on until it was too fucking late, what would she do? Wow. What could she possibly do differently in a situation in which she wishes to find herself in comparison to the situation we're in currently? The only thing that would be different would be to incentivise people from elsewhere. That's something she can't do without control over immigration. It's pretty obvious what's going on here, but no. Sturgeon continues the tirade of pandering and making out that Brexit would be catastrophic to our populace, as if the people of Scotland aren't in a position to have children of their own. God forbid that scenario ever came to the forefront, because it's all about diversity and inclusion and progression here in fucking Scotland. Am I right? And this is just an absolute shambolic example of just why I am starting to really grow a major irritation for the SNP. It's not so much the idea of immigration, it's when they so matter-of-factly tell us that our population is below replacement level, there's not enough native Scots being born, and yet she sits there and tries to drum up support for her fucking party by conjuring up patriotism and nationalism, albeit she won't ever admit to nationalism because that's far right apparently. So in one breath she wants to try and tug at the heartstrings to get people to be compassionate and passionate for Scotland, but in the next breath she's quite prepared to leave the Scotland of old exactly that in favour of some modernised version, just exactly how a left-wing demagogue would love to see their country capitulate. I mean, this is just the latest example of pandering. It's rather embarrassing, if not disingenuous to say the least.
Generations and those who have just arrived. Scotland is everyone who chooses to make this country their home. So when we speak of building a nation, what we mean is that we are building a better future for all those who live here and for the generations yet to come. A society founded on compassion, on kindness and love. A nation that people will come from all over the world to see, to experience and to be part of. So let's always take
the world to be part of. Well, there you go. There's the first little red flag, subtle as it was.
Time to dream a little, to dream of that better country. For those of us privileged to carry the SNP flame today, our task is to turn that dream, that message of hope, into reality. So let's get on with our task. Let us win our independence.
I reiterate again. So while she's again banging the independence drum, I'll just refer you back
Build
to
that
it.
fairer.
What did she say? A few days prior, she said, and I will repeat. And of course we propose that any final Brexit deal should be subject to a second referendum, you know, as they're all in favour of a people's vote, they're all in favour of Article 50 being revoked in general. So again, if any of those two events were to occur, they'd have no mandate for independence, but yet they still talk about independence as if it's going to happen, as if it's an inevitability, as if that is the only thing that's holding us back from being the truly great country we could be, is the fact that we are still part of the United Kingdom. When in the next breath, she'd be quite content with being part of the United Kingdom as long as her fucking EU membership is obtained, one way or the other. That's rather self-centred, is it not? It's a bit disingenuous to say the very least. And again, all this talk of immigration, completely ignoring people's concerns by talking to no end about the fact that our population is on the decline. And of course, all those empowered girls in Scotland, God forbid you ever tried to incentivise native births. God forbid you ever tried to incentivise families being created in Scotland. Oh no, that's a thing of the past. Doing the UN's bidding down to a T. You know, every country within the EU and the UK as well need to move away from the idea of homogenous nations in favour of diversity and multiculturalism. Something that you seem to froth at the mouth over off. Jesus, man. I'm fucking so sick of this shit. Oh, migration will secure our population growth, and that's a good thing when you have to look further afield. Should that not be the plan B for any country? When, but I forgot, we live in times now where the likes of Hungary deciding to prioritise native births over immigration is deemed Nazi-esque by Swedish politicians, and we've got Nicola Sturgeon referring to people that want to leave the European Union as Brextremists. Yeah? Since when was the European Union a bastion of all things progressive and wonderful? Especially when the Lisbon Treaty comes into full effect. God forbid Sturgeon ever mentions anything to do with that. Oh, no. Let's just talk about the wonders of the EU. Wow. Fucking wow. What a joke. The main driver for growth is inward migration. In fact, over the next 25 years, all of our projected population growth will be because of migration. All these projections. So you're not telling me that there wasn't projections that would have predicted the situation we currently find ourselves in. Why was that kept under lock and key? Why was there never anything, even under the SNP's reign, anything done to try to rectify the so-called ageing populist problem that we would find ourselves in at a later date? Not a damn thing was ever done. It's almost as if it was done deliberately, so we would find ourselves in a situation where we've got no choice but to open the floodgates to an extent for anybody that wishes to come here, because we need people, because our population is aging. You know? It's very strange. It's a very strange scenario to find ourselves in, where you seem to think it's a great idea for migration to just save the effing day. There is an important message. While immigration can be a controversial subject, the fact is that Scotland needs to attract people to live here for the sake of our own prosperity. If we want to sustain public services and continue to build a vibrant and successful economy, we need to grow our working age population. And of course, you've had how many years to fix this problem? How many years have we been part of the European Union with free movement of people at your disposal? And why have you not been able to solve the problem? Why do they not want to come here? And what are you going to do when you get control over immigration? If you get control over immigration, well, if you can't do anything that you've been doing previously, you're going to have to go further afield. It's almost as if that's exactly what you want. If we don't, there's a risk of our population going into decline. And what have you done to rectify the problem in all the years you've been in office? Not a fucking thing. However, immigration powers are not in the hands of the Scottish Parliament. Instead, they remain reserved to Westminster. But Westminster never prevented European immigration from coming to Scotland, so there was obviously another reason for why they didn't come over here at the levels you would like to have seen them come. And instead of recognising this major demographic challenge by developing policies to help encourage migration to Scotland, what about native births, Sturgeon? What the fuck planet are you on? You know what I mean? Am I missing the mark here completely, or does this just seem to be a backwards idea at this point? What about native births? When all else fails, go to the native birth scenario, Oh, I forgot. We don't want to be doing that because, we're responsible for climate change. This is so-called climate change. Our carbon footprint. Let's not have children. It's all right. The migrants will come in and they'll populate. It's okay. It makes no sense. It contradicts itself in its entirety. The government's trying to severely restrict migration, not least by ending free movement of people as part of Brexit. And before Brexit was implemented, as I keep reiterating, you've had how many years to right those wrongs? This is just one of many examples of a system that neither respects nor serves the interests of Scotland, and it demonstrates so much of the Brexit mess that Scotland needs to have more control over our own future. Since the vote to leave the EU, the agreed constitutional principles which have underpinned devolution been cast aside by the UK government, and the powers that you have been granted, you've given fucking back. But no mention of that because it's Westminster's fault. I'm all about inclusion and diversity here. Gender quotas. Devolution was delivered by consensus with the shared belief of putting the people of Scotland first, and if we want to protect Scotland's future we must seek to build that consensus. Whatever our different views in politics and on independence, these past few years should persuade us all that we need a more solid foundation on which to build our future as a country. I would not vote for an independence in favour of an independence for Scotland. In favour of independence, for Scotland, with you in charge. I'll just make that clear right now. We've seen in Westminster what happens when parties fail to work together. I believe Scotland could do better. What with you in charge? I really beg to differ in that regard. It's why I've reached out, blah blah blah. Of course, it's not just politicians and have views on our country's future. To ensure people across Scotland can also guide the conversation, the government will establish a citizens' assembly. That's great. You're not going to get my vote, and I really doubt you're going to get that million votes of people that you've continuously ignored. You know, the people in Scotland, well, even if you told them to vote to remain, they wanted independence. And second of all, those people that you speak of, that their voices have been ignored. You're not referring to the million that vote to leave. Oh no, fuck them. It's only democracy when you want it, am I right? Recent polls show a support for independence is growing. Oh, is that right? I'd love to know where she's finding these polls. An arsehole probably, because every poll I see, it's pretty much stagnant. Yeah, but if you're going to talk about polls, as I said, there's the poll that quite clearly said that 1 in 5 Scots want Indie Ref 2 within 5 years. The majority, in fact, don't want it. Is that just a poll that we're going to brush off as if it doesn't matter, doesn't exist? Yeah. What about this one, the one that you've ignored and gone on your tirade to no end about how wonderful migration will be for Scotland and why it's an essential? You know, just going to ignore that poll too. You know, if you're going to refer to polls, why don't you take the other ones into consideration? The ones that kind of do a little bit of damage to the shit you're spewing out on the regular. You know, just a thought. I believe Scotland's future should be decided by us. And if the UK won't change course, then Scotland must have the option to become an independent country within the EU. It makes no sense. To ensure that we have that choice, the government will introduce legislation for a referendum with the aim of passing it by the end of this year. This will protect Scotland's right to choose. And the only reason that you're coming out and saying this now is because you want it to before 2021, and that kind of coincides with an election, just on the off chance you get ousted, which I really hope you do. Your dream of hijacking independence for your fucking self-centered EU greed could capitulate.